Do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment, in accordance with the faith God has distributed to each of you. Now, what is Paul getting at here? He says, don't think of yourself too highly. In other words, he's implying that by nature, all of us are very good at having an overinflated view of who we actually are. We're good at this. We don't have to be told to do this. We naturally think that we're just better at things. And so if we're going to start with where we're at, that means we have to be honest about where we're at, who we actually are. Paul says, don't think too highly of yourself, but rather think of yourself, notice this key phrase, with sober judgment. The word there means that your view of yourself is an honest one, it's a real one, it's grounded in reality. In other words, it's grounded in what is true. It's a sober, realistic analysis of who you are. Now, I experience this from time to time as a person, even as a husband. Just last week, my wife and I were at the dinner table, and we're just going through old photos and videos. And she's scrolling across her phone, and she comes across this image, and it's of us in the car, and I got something in my hand. And so I say, hit play. Like, let's see what that video is. And Ashley's holding the phone. She's in the passenger seat. I'm in the driver's seat. And I am going to town on this Dairy Queen Blizzard. Because in the image, I couldn't tell what I was holding. I was like, what's going on? And I look at this thing, and I'm just devouring a Blizzard. And I had this very sobering moment of just me thinking, like, that's how I eat? Now, I know, and you can tell by the way that I look, that I probably am very familiar with food. But I didn't know that, like, I arch like that, and my neck comes out like that, and my hand can move that fast. It was very embarrassing just at night thinking about, like, man, our time and different things we've done, and here we come across this video of me devouring a Blizzard. It's a very sobering picture, and I turned to Ashley, and I was like, have I always eaten like this? And her reply was like, yes. She just learned to cope with it. But what's so helpful, though, is that you begin to understand that a sober judgment, in other words, an honest view of who you are, comes from the outside. Right? In other words, you need a perspective that you necessarily can't find within yourself, which is why the whole discussion of, like, having high esteem or high self-esteem or low self-esteem isn't necessarily helpful at the end of the day. Because that's not what Paul's getting at. He's not saying, well, don't have too high of a self-esteem, because that's not going to get you anywhere. Because when you think about it, what people with high self-esteem and low self-esteem both struggle with is community. Someone with high self-esteem says, well, I don't need anybody. And people with low self-esteem says, nobody would want me. Right? They both need community, and they're both too inwardly focused. And so I think if we're going to work with where I am, and if I am in Christ, then we need to set aside both high self-esteem and low self-esteem. And to have a right view of ourselves is first and foremost to receive for ourselves the love of God. That's where we start. That's what it means to work with where I am. It means to receive first and foremost that you are loved by God. Before you do anything, you are loved and accepted in Christ. And so if we're going to offer anything to the world, if we're going to discover what our gifts are and what we do matters, it has to come first and foremost from a place of already being accepted and already being loved. That's what it looks like to start with where we are at. Imagine now for us if we can start with where we're at. Loved and accepted with a love that is never ending. Imagine where we can go. Imagine what we can offer the world. Imagine what we could offer our families and the relationships that we're in if we began every single day from a place of love and acceptance. So if you want to find your gifts, if you want to truly understand what it is that you offer the world, you need to first start to work with where you are.